All right, welcome to the Achieve Mastery Mentoring Program session. If you're watching this in YouTube, I just want you to watch over my shoulder here and see how we can paint on top of a student's portrait. This is Merle's portrait where she sketched it out, and I printed this Walgreens on a canvas. So this is actually her sketch, but interestingly enough, I have it here in my studio because of modern technology, and we're going to be demonstrating to Merle how to do this painting, basically what steps to take. And this beautiful reference photo we have here looks like, you know, something from the 16th century. Very, very nice glaze work and shading on the face. The colors are very vibrant, and we've got that contrast between the cool tones in the headscarf and then the red hair. So I think this is going to be a beautiful painting to create. And I'm going to show you how to do this using the acrylic glazing technique, where we mix a little bit of paint with a large amount of matte medium. And when you mix that together, it's a lot of fun. So we have our matte medium here. We've got our colors arranged: titanium white, Indian yellow, organic orange, naphtha red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, raw sienna, burnt sienna, raw umber dark. So we're ready to go here. And in this video, I'm probably going to be talking to Merle as well, since this video really is for her. But I just want you to watch over my shoulder and be encouraged. And I hope these tips help you in your painting. I would recommend to try out the glazing technique if you've never tried it before. It's a great way to build up luminosity, shading, and preserve the detail of your sketch. So let's go ahead and we'll launch into this here. I'm just going to open up with a word of prayer and we'll get started. So Father, I ask a blessing here on Merle's painting. Help me to be able to show her how to paint this portrait, how to do it in an excellent way that she will be thrilled with. I pray you bless her and guide her as she paints. Help her to mix the colors accurately. Help her to be able to apply them well. Give her peace and confidence as she paints this. Help me to be able to demonstrate the steps clearly to her. And I pray, Father, that anybody who's watching this session would be helped by it. So just ask all this in Jesus' name. We give you thanks, Lord. Amen. All right, so we're going to dive in here. I'm going to begin with a 3/4 inch flat brush. I've got my white card here so you can see the glaze work and how that interacts with this black line. If we have any opacity at all, some pigments are more opaque than others, like, for example, raw sienna, burnt sienna, a little more opaque, obviously titanium white. You'll be able to see how that interacts with our black line on the white card. But we want to begin this painting by going general to specific. So we're starting with a very general large glaze, and we're going to work our way into the detail. I like to look at the reference photo, kind of come up with a plan of attack, so to speak, a game plan, we should say. And we want to basically look for the highest contrast area and then get some good definition. We also want to get definition between cool tones and warm tones. So I see two areas of contrast that we can immediately introduce into our canvas. And area number one would be the background. We have a really dark background. We have the face illuminated, so we want to dial that in right away. And then the other thing is the cool tones of the headscarf and then the warm tones of the face. So we're going to work out of that. Traditionally, when I begin a painting, I work with the cool tones and dark values first, and then I work my way into the warm tones. Now, if you've never done the glazing technique, this is probably a whole different way of painting you're not used to doing. But stick with me here, because you're going to find this technique is very beneficial. Even if you don't do all of your paintings with the glazing technique, you can still employ this technique on top of your current acrylic painting. So I hope this will be really helpful. Okay, without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to go to the palette here, and I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue, and I just dab that on my brush. I have a 3/4 flat, and I'm going to just dip that in. And we don't want the color to be too strong. It's good to start off really light, really faint. And let's just mix a tiny bit of phthalo blue into that as well, just so it's not too strong. indigo spectrum of color. So just add a little bit of phthalo into this. Okay, and we'll get a nice, it would be more like a Prussian blue or something like that. This will be a good way to start the painting. So now we get a mixture that's hopefully about 5% pigment and 95% matte medium. Matte medium is that clear acrylic that has no paint added, no pigment added. It's the acrylic polymer resin binder without the pigment. Now we're going to apply that to the left-hand side, and I like to start sometimes in the corner, sometimes cutting up along the edge of the area of contrast. But in this case, I'm going to begin on that upper left corner, and we're just going to glaze. Oh, and here's what that looks like on the white card, if you want to see that. Okay, so it's very faint. We just kind of work our way down. Now, Merle, you might want to add a toning layer to your sketch, possibly with a little bit of titanium white and matte medium, like a tiny amount of titanium white and matte medium. Sometimes we do have people begin with toning layers. In this case, I'm just going to go on a white canvas. There's many different ways it can be approached. And sometimes I do a toning layer with a little bit of raw sienna and burnt sienna added. In this case, I'm going to go right onto the white canvas because we have that strong blue scarf, and I really don't want to lessen the saturation of that pigment, which adding an earth tone would do. So I want that to be very saturated, high chroma. So I'm going to go right on that white canvas, but it might be helpful, Merle, for you to kind of tone down your sketch with a toning layer of titanium white and a little matte medium. And I did that off camera. I probably should have demonstrated that on camera, but just something you might want to try, just so that your sketch isn't too strong. You can see mine's kind of muted down a little bit. And you've seen my other videos where I demonstrate that. It's in pretty much all of my portrait challenges. If you're curious as to the process, just don't add any raw sienna or burnt sienna, just a little bit of titanium white and a larger amount of matte medium. Or you could use gesso as well if you prefer. Gesso is a little more transparent, so that might be something to try. Okay. So you can see we applied that. It's just like, coloring in the pages on a coloring book. It's just one solid level of color, no shading at this point. We're just trying to establish contrast. And now I'm going to also bring this into the scarf as well. Now, I probably could have brushed all the way across, but this is a good dividing line. Now notice my brush strokes are kind of long. I'm using a lot of perpendicular pressure. So I really want to get this, pushed into the weave of the canvas. Zoom out so you can see that better. Now, if you want to check out more of my tutorials, free classes, videos, you can go to realisticacrylic.com. There I have several tips, tutorials, classes, free videos for you. Check it out at realisticacrylic.com. And there's a link in the description of the video. So again, we want to cut up along the edge. Oh yeah, right here. We need that definition up against the edge of her jawline. So I'm kind of using the angle of the brush. I have it tilted. Notice 45-degree angle I have it tilted at. And then that allows me to precisely get that edge and cut up along that side. And then I can kind of brush it out. Whoops. If you make a mistake, just wipe it off. No big deal. Okay, and I don't want to go over the hair because that hair is supposed to have a little more red to it. Now we kind of fan that out like this and use very light brushwork. Don't overbrush it because if you do, it's going to end up kind of splotchy. Here we have some blue as well on this part of her clothing. I don't know if that's, I guess that's off camera. You can see it now, but we're just going to use a little bit of it, and I'm kind of dry brushing it because we have some green we need to get in there. So I'm just adding the blue right here, a little bit right there, and then up there. Okay, so we also need to add some of this into the eyes. So let's do that, and I think a round brush will work well. So we're going to grab this size 5 Da Vinci round brush. Well, you don't have to use Da Vinci. I just mentioned Da Vinci because, you know, I like Da Vinci. You can see that writing. Anyway, and I thought it was appropriate for this style. But let's go ahead and add that in here. We want to colorize the eyes, and we want to keep that glaze light, so don't go too dark with this. You can make the glaze lighter or darker depending on how much brush pressure you use. That'll determine how much paint gets squeezed out of the ferrule of the brush. And then if you go over it again, that actually can lighten it up a little more. You can lift some of that color away. If you wipe the paint off on your palette, okay, just like that, or on a rag or something, then you can lift some of that glaze off if your glaze got a little too heavy. So that's another tip for you as well. All right, so that's a good start there. And boy, Merle just did a fantastic job in this sketch. And would you believe she's really only been doing this for, well, 5-6 years? And, you know, if you saw how she started out and where she's at today, what a transformation. She's really put in the hard work and brought her skill level up. And I'm really proud of what she's accomplished here, this sketch. Merle, I am proud of you. You've done a great job. So, all right, now that's it for the cool tones. So we started, again, with a glaze to get a distinction between the levels of contrast, between the background, clothing, and the face, and the color temperatures. Now we can shift over to some glazes for the warm side, which would be, you know, the flesh tones and her hair. So let's do that. For that, I like to use a little bit of a smaller brush. I think we're going to use, this is a 1/2 inch flat, and we're going to use that instead, maybe 5/8 flat. So let's dip from this other side of the matte medium, and we have to think of a color that's going to work for pretty much everything. I think we're going to start with some raw umber dark. We just take a little bit of that on the brush and then dip that into the matte medium. And I'm going to add just also a little bit of alizarin crimson. That's a strong color though, so I have to be careful not to overdo that. I'm going to bring that in as well. So raw umber dark, a little bit of alizarin crimson. Get us a nice kind of flesh tone started. We're looking for more of that shadow color. With the glazing technique, you don't have to mix the right color right away. You have many opportunities to be able to achieve that color, which is fantastic. I love that about the glazing technique. So here we have the color on our white card. Isn't that a nice kind of flesh tone? And we're going to apply that to the shadowed side of the face. We want to really be aware of our light source. Light is coming from the front and to the right. It's casting a shadow on the left side of the face. Strong shadow being cast from the nose, lips, chin, over the neck, eyebrow ridge, skull socket into the eye. So we want to make sure that we start with that area first, because we want to get most of the paint off the brush by the time we get to the lighter side of the face. It'll make it much easier to control the flow. So we begin here, and we're going to go over that eyelid. We can go over even into the white of the eye a little bit. That's okay. Just kind of block this in here, there. And we're wanting to see these shapes being created by the shadows and highlights. Now you can use a little bit of a dry brush. You can even dab it a little bit, and that helps to soften up your glaze. Okay, go again over this part, just like that. A little bit on that bump on the chin. I'll bring it into the shadow here. That philtrum area, bottom of the nose ever so slightly. Just dab that a little bit. Also bring it into this area of the eye. Okay, and then right here. Now we're not trying to differentiate any color at this point. We are using a glaze, obviously, that has some color in it. But most importantly, we're just trying to develop that value structure. And see, I can then dab that a little bit of shading here. I'm going to also put some shading on the hair as well, just to set the stage for that when we introduce the red color. Let's get a cast shadow on the left side of the nose, just below the tear duct. Okay, we want to make sure we're using light pressure. And now there's more paint left in the ferrule of the brush. It's there, and we can squeeze it out by putting more pressure on the brush. And so now I'm going to squeeze that out for the neck area. And if this is dry right here, we actually can overlap and start getting this color here to be more of a black. So that works really well, and that's another beautiful thing of the glazing technique, is how you can overlap. See how that works? Now we've got, you know, some shadows kind of built up here within this particular color of her headscarf. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit on the reference. And then I'm going to put a shadow in right here. So that's based on the sketch. Merle did a great job. Merle did a great job getting that shadow in there, so we know just where to put those glazes. And let's just make sure we're balancing everything out. So possibly we might want to introduce these glazes to the other areas, and we might need to switch our brush for that. So that's something to keep in mind. Before I do that, let me just make sure I've got this neck area all finished. Just kind of dab this out. Now don't overlap into your layer. Once it sets, you got to leave it be. I'm being very careful to not overlap into the area that's been set down until it's dry. That's really key. If you overlap into your glaze before it's dry, you'll start to muddy things up. You'll start to cause the paint to not adhere, and you'll get little blotchy areas, and that can be really frustrating. And I'd like you to avoid that. Probably could get just a little bit into the cheek if we add some matte medium and thin this glaze out. When I say thin it out, I mean make it more translucent, more transparent. All right, so I'm adding matte medium, which disperses the pigment, makes it a little more transparent. You can see the difference on our white card, how that's lighter than the one above. And we can use that just right here, ever so slightly, get a little bit of a differentiation on that cheekbone. Be very, very faint with that. See how you can just barely see it? Also a little bit in here as well. You want to add that there. Now I do need to switch brushes because I'm not going to be able to achieve these other areas with that large of a brush. So I'm switching to my size 5 round. I'm going to use this same color here just to keep the color continuity and harmony within the painting going. And what I'll do is see if there's any areas I can take care of with this brush, like the lips. You might think, well, lips are red. Why would I be putting brown in here? But there's some shadow color in here, and we want to make sure we get that shadow in there, delineated using this brush. And so we kind of dab that, and then we go ahead and put a glaze on that bottom portion. All right, so we're just going to put it on this bottom portion, a little bit in the parting of the lip, and glaze it slightly below. I just couldn't hit that with the other brush, so I have to hit it with this one. All right, so that allows us to get that delineated, and then we're going to put a little shadow right here on that bottom of the nose, wing of the nose area. Little shadow right there. And a couple on the fold, and then let's get just a bit on the eyebrow. The eyebrow's a little darker. So we just put in a little bit there. Again, we don't want to overdo it, just ever so slight. And if you put down too much glaze, don't be afraid to lift it up with your finger. You could use a rag if you want. But acrylic is pretty non-toxic. As long as you wash your hands and don't eat it, you should be fine. Okay, we'll put a little bit here on her hair. And now let's also use the same color. So what color am I using? What glaze? I'm using this one right here. Back to that slightly more robust glaze. And then I'm going to be putting that on the shadows of the headscarf. So just kind of fill this in. Just get some shadows incorporated there. So this color will set it apart from the blue. When you mix brown and blue together, you get more of a black, and that's what we're looking for that to eventually get to that tone. All right. We'll go ahead and we'll add glaze up in here as well. Okay, so we're just finishing that up, getting in these shadow colors, and then next we're going to be, well, hold on one second. It's got to shadow this a little bit here. There we go. All right, we're going to stop off here. So now you can see kind of the beginning process of how the glazes work, and we have the painting setup. We've got your areas of contrast with the cool tones, warm tones. We do want to go in next with some red, and actually, well, maybe we'll hit that in this video. I think these areas have already dried, so let's just hit that red in there, and then we'll call it done. I'm going to use this. We have a 1/4 inch flat here, so let's use that. Actually more like a 3/8 flat. We're going to take some organic orange. I think that we'll just use organic orange by itself. Mix that with some matte medium. We're going to fill that in a couple of areas. So let's go ahead and fill that in over the hair and the lips. We'll start that on the hair. Oh, and here's what it looks like on the white card, so you can see that. It's kind of blended into that point right there. And then we're going to add a little bit over here on this side. Fill that in. I'll just kind of smooth out these brush strokes. And let's also put that on the lips. You want to make sure everything's dry in the previous layer before you do that. I think we have that. And I would say there's even a little bit around the eyes, so let's put that around the eyes very faintly. I know that might seem like a strange color, but I'm just picking it up as I look at the reference photo. I can see those reddish tints there. Use less brush pressure, so we have less of that glaze going out. I think that makes a difference. All right. All right, so this is good. Oh, we had a little bit of red right here. Missed that. There it is. Okay. Excellent. Now we have a good stopping point. So we have, again, the cool colors, warm colors. We even have some of the red. We have basically everything represented with 3 tones, the blue, the browns, the reds, and then we just build upon that. We add a little more complexity each time, more shading, more differentiation, more contrast, a little more color information with some of the highlights and nuances with the skin tones, some of the different coloring within the scarf. We have some kind of greenish tones in there. We'll get those in, but this is how we're setting it up. So anyway, Merle, I hope this helps, and I'm looking forward to helping you with your painting more, showing you the next steps. And for those of you who have watched this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment below if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share with me about this video. And your interaction with this video helps it to get seen by more people on YouTube. So if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. And again, check out my tips, tutorials, classes, videos at realisticacrylic.com. Well, thank you so much for watching. Look forward to teaching you more. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.